At the bus stop, a peculiar passenger boarded the dusty, dilapidated bus that traveled along the provincial roads. His presence was unusual, especially considering the stop was situated in a desolate wilderness. The nearby villages were slowly dying as the youth flocked to bigger cities in search of a more comfortable life, while the elderly simply passed away from old age. The old man, around 75 years old, resembled a character from ancient folk tales. He had long, well-groomed gray hair, and his beard stuck out in various directions, resembling the gnarled branches of an oak tree. His attire was simple, not rags, but certainly not a luxurious suit either, with patches evident in several places. Though his clothes were old, they were functional. He clutched a homemade walking stick. In general, he appeared to be a prophet, a pilgrim, or perhaps even a beggar. Nevertheless, the dignified old man paid no mind to the curious glances of the other passengers. He stood tall, not as a bent old man dragging his bones, but rather as an aging warrior whose strength still lingered. "Excuse me," he asked the driver calmly. "How much further until the district? The city? I'm going to the Burden Inn restaurant. Is it still there?" "Of course it is," the driver replied. "What brings you there?" "No offense, but you don't seem like a regular at such places." "I decided to visit some distant relatives. I wanted to see how they're doing and treat myself to a good meal," the old man explained. He smoothed his beard, a grin hidden beneath it. "Well, I have good news for you," the driver said. "The bus station isn't far from that restaurant. We'll get there in a couple of hours." "Thank you," the elderly man replied as he made his way to a free seat. The other passengers fell silent, looking at him with a newfound respect. By evening, the bus had arrived at its final destination, and the friendly driver even escorted the old man to the restaurant entrance. After bidding farewell and expressing his gratitude, the old man walked toward the entrance. Elliot remembered his hometown differently. Although it had once welcomed him with open arms, it was now unrecognizable. He recalled it as a modest town, but now it seemed vulgar and flashy, covering its natural beauty with layers of makeup. He felt like a pilgrim returning from distant lands, carrying a piece of his homeland in his soul. After decades of wandering, he had come back home, yet neither he nor the town he once knew recognized the other. To be honest, there was no one waiting for the elderly man at the restaurant, but that didn't bother him. His journey had led him to the right address, and that was what mattered. The parking lot in front of the restaurant was filled with expensive cars, and the noise of a celebration spilled through the open doors. It was clear that a wedding was in full swing. A well-groomed staff member stood at the entrance, polished and neatly shaven to complement the lavish event. The elderly man approached him and asked, "Hello, could you tell me where the bride and groom are?" The staff member frowned, clearly annoyed by the silly requests from drunken guests or jokesters throughout the evening. He doubted that anyone unfamiliar would show up at the wedding, so he waved his hand dismissively toward the banquet hall. "They're all in there. I'm sure you'll recognize the bride and groom when you see them. They're the most stunning ones here, though the bridesmaid is beautiful too." The elderly man paid no mind to his speculations and headed toward the banquet hall. The bride and groom sat at the head of the table, the young woman dressed in a splendid wedding gown while the groom appeared cheerful in a classic suit, which he wore with a feigned lightness, as if he preferred controlling the festivities over genuinely enjoying them. He was good-looking, so no one could be surprised by the bride's choice. The old man approached the newlyweds, but nobody paid him any attention. Everyone was dancing, singing, and celebrating. Toasts were made for the health and happiness of the newlyweds and for many children to come. The old man quietly approached the young couple and greeted them. "Cheers to the newlyweds," he exclaimed. The bride greeted him with a joyful smile. Closer, it was obvious she was already quite tired from the most important day of her life, while the groom looked annoyed. They would have gladly retreated to their own space by now, but tradition held them in place. "Hello. What brings you to us?" the bride asked politely. "Yes, beauty. Or let's ask the groom. He's the head of the family. Fate brought me from afar, and that's why I can foresee the fates of others. What are you afraid to know? You're Derek, aren't you? The old man asked. The groom stiffened, his tone demanding. Who are you? Does it matter who this old man is? What matters is who is still alive, the old man replied calmly. I arrived here by destiny. I see a young man whose conscience is bothering him. Poor guy. But it's not your bride. At that moment, the bride shuddered, tears glistening in the corners of her eyes. Derek ignored her, glaring at the old man, who appeared unfazed. If glares could kill, the old man would have turned to ash a long time ago. The unexpected guest's words ignited a spark. All of the groom's accumulated exhaustion and irritation found an outlet. Why the hell did you come to my wedding and ruin everyone's mood? Should I throw you out? Or will you leave on your own? The old man remained calm, unperturbed, and continued speaking. You know, boy, you don't need to scare me. I've faced fear many times throughout my life. Yet here I am, still walking this earth, and death hasn't claimed me yet. So don't concern yourself about my fate. Instead, you should be worried about your own actions. You're staring down the barrel of jail time. You may scoff at it, get angry, or whatever, but it will happen. The groom felt as if he had just been slapped across the face. His color drained, and he blinked rapidly, all his fighting spirit crumbling like a house of cards. In his eyes was a silent question. How do you know this? Meanwhile, the uninvited guest continued. Have you been hunting recently? A long time ago, the groom replied in a low voice, struggling to regain his composure. In vain. There are too many beasts in the woods these days. I've heard they're making cartridges now just to scare the animals off, not to kill them. What's your take on that? Oh, my bullets are just fine, Derek replied, feeling a surge of hatred toward the stranger, a beggar he had met only moments ago. Even though the old man hadn't directly accused him, it was clear he knew something. Sophia, on the other hand, saw only wisdom in the old man. He struck chords in her soul that she had long tried to hide over the past year and a half. It felt as if he were passing on a message from her past, a greeting from her deceased lover. Victor had been gone for a year and a half, but she still couldn't forget him. She had agreed to marry Derek only to forget and move on, and now the old man had touched upon her buried feelings. After all, it was during a hunt that the incident had happened. It's fortunate you have real bullets. There have been all sorts of incidents, but I can see you're the type who could even take on a bear. The old man continued speaking, and Derek could take it no longer. He stood up, seized the stranger by the elbow, and roughly led him out of the restaurant, drawing stunned gazes from the guests, before the moment faded from their memories. A minute later, Sophia slipped out through a back door and caught up with the old man. She handed him a small bundle of treats, hastily put together in the restaurant kitchen. I'm so sorry. Please forgive Derek. He's just nervous. He's very emotional. It's not every day a man gets married, so he's on edge. But I listened to you carefully, and you said some strange things. Nothing specific, but somehow it felt scary and creepy. Do you know something about that day? My name is Elliot, he said. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. You're searching for answers that I can give you, but I won't. If you wish to find them, remember where you left your love and seek it in the closed village not far from here. Answers are waiting for you there. But now I must leave. A long road awaits me. You have a choice. Seek the truth or continue living as you have been. The old man turned and limped toward the bus stop. Sophia called after him, but her words fell on deaf ears as she remained rooted to the spot, consumed by memories. Everything had unfolded a year and a half ago. Her beloved Victor and Derek had gone hunting that fateful day. They shared not only business and friendship, but also a deep passion for hunting. Nothing hinted at the impending trouble. As usual, the friends grabbed their rifles and set out to find prey, but instead, they became the hunted. When Derek returned home that evening, he recounted how a bear had attacked them. The animal had likely woken from hibernation earlier than expected, making it aggressive. Victor had been less fortunate. His rifle malfunctioned, Derek had shot at the bear and fled. When he realized that his friend was dead, they didn't even find Victor's body. The search lasted 6 months. Sophia suffered greatly during that time, unable to find her place in the world. She blamed everyone and everything for her loss. Eventually, Derek began making timid attempts to win her heart, but she clung to the memory of her beloved for a year before finally responding to Derek's feelings. Though she didn't burn with love for him, Derek was a handsome young man. She believed he would always be there for her, having adored her and feeling guilty for the death of his friend. Derek often expressed his guilt for not protecting Victor, and he said it sincerely. Over time, she believed him and forgave him. After the wedding and a brief honeymoon, when the newlyweds had finally had their fill of each other and remembered that life had more to offer beyond love, Derek began frequently disappearing for work. Meanwhile, Sophia took charge of their household, fully immersing herself in domestic responsibilities. It was a strange realization for her, to be a wife waiting for her husband to come home from work. The absence of great, pure love weighed heavily on her. She expected something different from her marriage. As time went on, she found herself increasingly recalling the elder. He even appeared in her dreams, staring at her silently with reproach. One day, Sophia called Derek, who was at work. "Yes," came a slightly irritated voice from the other end. Apparently, Derek was busy and she was distracting him. Perhaps it was this irritability that finally helped Sophia gather her resolve to act on her plans. "Darling, I'm sorry to bother you. I was talking to Emily and she invited me to go hiking in the woods overnight. She has a place there. It belonged to her grandfather, a gamekeeper. We'll stay there. Are you okay with that?" Sophia crafted a pleasant, harmless story for her husband. Derek sighed heavily. "Of course, I don't mind. I'll be busy with our business anyway." "Thanks, Kitty. Love you." Sophia laughed. "Have a good trip, and don't forget to leave some food." "Yeah, he won't eat whiskey with beer." "Well, I've taken care of the main thing," she thought to herself. First, Sophia stopped at a gas station and filled every available container with fuel. She had no idea how long she would be searching for the village, so preparation was key. Her next stop was the grocery store, where she wandered the aisles, refusing to let go of the joyful excitement of embarking on this little adventure. She felt like a mischievous girl sneaking out of her house for the first time, slipping through a window to attend a disco. But the journey greeted her with dusty, deserted roads, sweltering heat, and frequent stops, slowly shaking off her childish delight and leaving only determination. If the old man could do it, so could she. There was no doubt about it. Despite the hours of tension any driver feels on the road, Sophia found herself admiring the scenery. Forests blended into cultivated fields, which gave way to rolling hills, all of which were vibrant and fragrant. She stopped more than once just to pick a flower and breathe in its scent. Occasionally, she spotted wild animals, mostly deer or hares, and gazed at this diverse world with wide-eyed wonder. She arrived at the bus stop in the evening and, as she figured out her route, realized it was too late to continue. She would have to spend the night there until morning. Driving a short distance away, she turned off the car. After a quick snack of garlic and mineral water, she reclined the driver's seat and tried to catch some sleep. The cacophony of the night forest was so foreign to a city dweller that she struggled to close her eyes for a long time. Only fatigue and the stress of the day finally lulled her into sleep closer to midnight. As Sophia stretched her stiff body in the morning, she scolded herself for her reckless adventure, but her heart skipped a beat when she thought of Victor. If the old man could unveil the secret, perhaps she could finally find peace and move on. That's what she hoped. As she approached the first settlement, she encountered an old woman carrying a bucket of water. The woman greeted her, but eyed her skeptically, clearly indicating that strangers were not welcome. "Where are you from, and what do you need?" she asked. "I'm looking for a closed village where an elder with a beard lives." The elderly woman looked at Sophia strangely before hurriedly walking away. I don't know of any lost villages or elders. Surprised by the woman's odd reaction, Sophia continued driving. But the same scenario played out in the next village until finally, in the third, a middle-aged forester pointed toward a half-abandoned dirt path, its entrance marked by a wooden post. Just be careful. There are all kinds of rumors about that village. We don't have much contact with them, and they don't seek our friendship either. We just live our lives, not bothering one another. I don't know what you need from them, but if you sense something's wrong, come straight back here, the forester warned. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind, Sophia smiled, saying goodbye to the forester before driving on. The branches whipped against the side windows, occasionally threatening to crack the windshield. The grass almost covered the car's headlights, forcing her to drive slowly, cautious not to miss a turn or break down. An hour of slow driving brought her to a rather peculiar place. The settlement was situated on a vast artificial clearing, likely created by clearing trees. The log cabins looked austere, their rough exteriors the only modern touch being the glass windows. Despite the early hour, the village was bustling. Children dashed around, men engaged in crafts, and women appeared only sporadically in the streets. The arrival of a car piqued the interest of all the villagers. Men halted their work and came out to meet the uninvited guest. Sophia stepped out of the car, feeling both scared and determined to see this through. If this was some kind of sect, she might not make it out. Good day, young lady. What brings you here, and why have you disturbed our peace? Asked a burly, bearded man who looked more like a bear than a human. He appeared to be the local leader. Hello. I was invited, Sophia replied, glancing at the villagers who exchanged skeptical looks. Invited by whom? He asked. We have renounced the world and live in solitude with nature. We don't invite strangers here. People come here only by the call of their heart. So why did you come? I suppose you could say it was by the call of my heart. An elder invited me here. His name is Elliot, and he promised to reveal the secret of my fiancé's death. Suddenly, an old man with a familiar beard emerged from the crowd. So, you finally decided to seek the truth? Or has your conscience been gnawing at you? Why should my conscience trouble me? Sophia asked, surprised. Come with me, the old man beckoned with his staff, leading her toward his cabin. The villagers parted to let them through, then silently resumed their work. Within minutes, only the car remained as a reminder of the unusual event. The old man's cabin resembled a fairy tale dungeon, but Sophia quickly adapted to the darkness. The hallway led her to the brightest room in the dwelling. It was spacious, filled with the sounds of birdsong filtering through the open windows. A man lay on a large bed near the fireplace. He appeared emaciated and tortured, yet his eyes were thoughtful. Next to the bed was a small stool, serving as a bedside table. On it rested a book, an unfinished wooden toy, and a knife that had been used for carving. Well, do you recognize it? Elliot asked. No. Who is he? Sophia whispered. The man in bed looked at her, his expression unfriendly, as though she had offended him. You see, Victor, I told you that a woman's love is fleeting. She buried you long ago, and your memory is fading from her heart, the elder gloated. Don't rush, Elliot. Let her come to her senses, another voice chimed in. The voice of the man lying in bed was hoarse, but somehow familiar to Sophia. Victor? Is that you? She exclaimed, feeling faint. She lost consciousness, only to be jolted awake when the old man splashed icy water on her face. Oh, these delicate city girls! They faint at the slightest bit of distress. Elliot grumbled as he helped Sophia into a chair. Can you folks manage without me? He directed his question more towards Sophia than Victor, who nodded in response. So, we finally met. Have you really forgotten me? The man asked, his gaze fixed on Sophia. No, Victor. I haven't forgotten, but so much has happened. I thought you were dead. Derek said you were torn to pieces. Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes as the realization hit her. She had betrayed the man she loved. Let me tell you the truth. Then we can decide what to do next, Victor began. During the hunt, a bear attacked us. We tried to escape, but it charged straight for me. My instincts told me to shoot at the bear's face, but at the last moment, all I heard was a click. I knew then that it was the end. I tried to dodge and move aside, but the bear's paw hit me with tremendous force, slamming me against a sturdy pine tree. That's when I lost feeling in my legs. I blacked out and briefly regained consciousness at the sound of a gunshot. My mind assumed it was Derek trying to save me. The bear loomed over me, but the shot only enraged it, and it turned its fury on him. But Derek ran as fast as he could to the car. He thought it better for me to die than for him. Taking advantage of the bear's distraction, I crawled, unsure of where I was heading or how long I had been dragging myself. I don't even recall what I ate during that time. All those events have faded from my memory. All I remember is the helplessness of not feeling my legs. When Elliot found me in the woods, I mistook him for a prophet, driven mad by fever. Thankfully for me, the old man had an instinct that day and went out to gather mushrooms. Elliot was strong enough to pull me to the settlement, nursing me back to life for a month. He had to rescue me from the edge of the afterlife. I was delirious for over a week, cursing my friend for abandoning me and swearing at the bear. Eventually, I began to regain consciousness, but I still didn't understand where I was and thought I had died. Elliot worked tirelessly to bring me back to life, healing everything except my spine. Since then, I've been bedridden. Elliot's life was no less interesting or tragic. He was a well-known surgeon until a car accident took his wife and son. It wasn't his fault, yet he blamed himself for a long time. Work could have helped him forget, but his vision deteriorated, and a constant tremor forced him to retire. Seeing no way out, the strong-willed doctor didn't turn to alcohol or end his life. Instead, he chose to become a hermit, deciding he had helped enough people. The familiar places only served to bring back painful memories. He boarded the first bus he saw and walked until he stumbled upon the closed road. It can be said that fate led him there. He resonated with their ideas, and one day, he felt a vague yet polished gift manifesting in random visions. In that place, alone with himself and nature, he found peace, releasing his deceased wife and son into a world where they were better off. Once in the middle of the night, Elliot had a vision about me. He woke me up and said, "Listen carefully. I'll tell you once, and you'll forget it by morning. You must decide what you want. Are you ready? Your friend is to blame for your misfortune and weakness, not because he abandoned you in the woods, but because he set things in motion long ago. He found a den and gave you faulty bullets. He saw you facing the bear and, feeling his conscience pricked, took a shot. I had a vision that his wedding was coming soon. If you can describe your girlfriend to me, I suspect he plans to marry her. It's not strange, considering it's been a year and a half. Think it over and give me your answer in the morning." That's when I headed to the wedding. While Sophia listened to Victor's story, she couldn't stop crying, repeatedly uttering, "Forgive me. Please forgive me." "Calm down. I had enough time to forgive you." "But why him? Why Derek?" Victor asked. "Now it's my turn to tell my story. I couldn't eat, drink, or sleep for 6 months knowing I had lost you. During that time, Derek was there for me in every way. He had feelings for me before, and now that I was single again, he made his intentions clear. But I wasn't in the mood for a relationship. I was still grieving for you. 6 months later, another disaster struck. My father fell seriously ill, and I couldn't afford treatment. That's when Derek stepped up. He suggested we combine our efforts and create a family. He said, "If you don't love me, at least let me love you. We have more in common than it seems, more than just the memory of Victor." What choice did I have? I love my father, and this was my chance. So I accepted his proposal. Derek saved my father, selflessly, of course. Victor scoffed. He took over my part of the business and framed me for the bear incident. What a savior. He's a scoundrel. Sophia's apologies came pouring out again as she wept. Elliot interrupted. You know, I've witnessed a lot in my life, breakups, betrayals, and deaths on the operating table. I often danced with death, playing tricks on her and spoiling her bloody harvest, pulling patience back from the brink. But now, I've done everything I can for you. Thank you. I don't know how to express my gratitude. You've given me a second chance at life. You've brought my beloved back, Sophia said. But what now? Should I run to the police and file a complaint against Derek? And what will I say there? Sophia asked, feeling the weight of the moment. You're thinking straight. Nobody will believe you. They'll just laugh at you even more, Victor responded. He then added, Do you want to be with me? A bedridden invalid? What difference does it make to me whether you're bedridden or not? You're alive, and I love you. That's what matters, she replied, her heart racing. The old man began to speak in riddles. I said that I did everything I could for both of you, and that's true. But for you, Victor, I can do something more. They say a debt is best when it's paid. I have a friend, a neurosurgeon, who owes me a favor. If you send him a message from me, he'll help you get back on your feet. He's a knowledgeable specialist, better than any I've known. You see how perfectly this all works out? I need to go into town to arrange everything, he said, starting to hurry away. Wait, let me admire you a little, Victor said, and Sophia moved closer to him. They shared a tender kiss. Sophia, let's keep the fact that I'm alive a secret for now. We shouldn't give Derek a chance to harm us. You go to the city and find out about that doctor. I'll wait for you here. Okay, my love. It will be difficult to get out unnoticed again, but I'll manage. They said their goodbyes, and Sophia left the village, feeling inspired yet anxious. However, as she drove home, a wave of nausea washed over her. At first, she attributed it to motion sickness from the long drive, but when she arrived home, the nausea lingered. Remembering that this malaise had haunted her for weeks, Sophia suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. She hurried to the bathroom, took a test, and saw 2 lines appear. It was a shocking blow to her love for Victor. Distraught, Sophia found herself torn. On one hand was her beloved Victor, a man who had lost everything and might never return to the city. On the other was Derek, who adored and cared for her and who she now realized she was expecting a baby with. Rationally, she leaned towards staying with Derek. Love doesn't provide for a child, and happiness is a fleeting thing. Yet, her restful sleep was lost. A week later, one morning, Derek stopped at the store to pick up something delicious for dinner. He wanted to surprise Sophia, knowing she hadn't been herself lately. While in line, he bumped into Emily, Sophia's friend. Oh, hi. Emily, how was the trip? Did you enjoy it? Hi. What are you talking about? She replied, surprised. Your grandfather's cabin, where you used to live as a child. What are you talking about? I don't have any grandfather's cabin. I haven't left the city in ages. Alarm bells went off in Derek's mind, and he abandoned his groceries, rushing out of the store. Oh no, Emily squeaked, realizing she had unintentionally set her friend up. She tried to call Sophia, but she was unreachable. In their brief marriage, Sophia had learned to read her husband's emotions. If he came home in a bad mood, she immediately sensed it. Now, Derek stormed into the house like a whirlwind, and anyone could see he was on the verge of exploding. What's wrong with you, dear? Sophia asked, trying to calm him down, but he glared at her with fierce eyes as he headed to the kitchen to brew himself some toast. Sit down. I'll make it. Do you want something to eat? She offered, showing her care. You know, Sophia, I'd prefer to hear an interesting story from you first. What kind of story? His wife felt a pang of anxiety. The atmosphere was thickening with tension. Well, we're about to find out. I met Emily at the store, and you know what I discovered? She doesn't have any grandfather's cabin in the woods. Unbelievable, right? Yeah, Sophia murmured, her gaze dropping as the realization struck her that something terrible was about to unfold. I'll explain everything honestly right now. You've already explained everything. When you lied to me, wasn't I enough for you in our marriage? I killed your father. You don't have to work. What else do you need in this life? Derek shouted, his voice brimming with righteous anger. Sophia began, but a spasm of nerves twisted inside her. You're a snake that I kept warm on my chest. You're a cheater. Enraged, Derek grabbed her by the hair and delivered a harsh slap. The world around her spun as 1,000 stars exploded in her head, and everything went dark. The pain in her stomach became unbearable, and she lost consciousness. Miscarriage, the gynecologist stated matter-of-factly. He had uttered those words countless times and had become desensitized to the tragedies. But for his patients, it was always a deeply personal loss. No, he wasn't a bad or cynical doctor. He was simply exhausted from the endless string of tragedies. Sophia lay there, feeling numb, lacking the desire to move. IVs dripped into her, and though her condition was stable, she had lost a lot of blood in her baby. In her despair, she didn't even blame Derek for what had happened. She justified it by remembering her own lie, scolding herself for not asking Emily to cover for her and for deceiving her husband. Emily, too, felt guilt gnawing at her for her loose tongue. She visited Sophia every day, and one day, Sophia confided her secrets. "So, you're saying Victor is alive?" Emily asked, her surprise evident. "I wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't seen him with my own eyes." "And what are you going to do now?" Emily pressed. "What can I do? I'm lying here, full of injections. What can I do now?" Sophia replied, defeated. "Listen, you can't, but I can. You haven't told your husband anything yet, right?" "No, but I don't know where to drive him." "Do you?" Emily inquired. "Sophia, I want to fix my mistake. Take your time and tell me everything. I'll talk to Victor, and we'll figure out what to do. Besides, I always liked Victor more than Derek. By the way, is your husband repentant, or are you thinking of divorcing him and going back to your maiden name?" Sophia smiled sadly. "I don't know what's on his mind. He's been sending me remorseful messages and paying for my treatment, but I'm not ready to see him in person yet. I don't know if I even want to see him. I love Victor, and I had planned to stay with Derek because of the child. But now there is no child." Sophia turned toward the window, tears streaming down her face. Emily understood that it was best to leave her friend alone at that moment, so she quietly slipped out. Meanwhile, Elliot was particularly fatigued today. The berry and mushroom picking had started to drain more energy than usual. However, he felt pleased that the children were increasingly joining him in these activities. It brought him joy to teach them and share stories about life in the stone jungles they had never experienced. The children listened to his descriptions of cities with the same wonder that Hunter felt when hearing tales of wizards and fairies. Victor was engaged in his usual activity of crafting toys, this time focused on a set of wooden soldiers that all looked similar. He had truly become a master of his craft. "Well done. Beautiful carving," Elliot praised. "They look just like real ones. Each boy will get a warrior, right?" he asked. "Tough," Victor replied, his pride evident. "Yes, I've made 7 already. Just 2 more to go. Then I'll ask Lucas for more blanks. You know, I'm inspired to be useful. I'm carving trinkets to keep myself busy, and sometimes I forget that my legs don't work. I love seeing the children's eyes when they receive their gifts. I wonder if I'll ever have my own child, a son or a daughter." "Oh, dreams," Elliot encouraged him. "Cheer up, Victor. Now it's up to Sophia. By the way, I haven't heard from her in a long time. I have a bad feeling about something," he added, falling silent as he pondered. After a moment, he made up his mind. "I'll go to the city again." "For me?" Victor asked, stunned. "For you, for Sophia, and for myself. I haven't been feeling well lately, and maybe there won't be any more chances to see my hometown," the old man replied as he began to gather his things. 20 minutes later, he walked along the forest path until he reached the edge of the thicket, where a wooden post stood. There he saw a car parked next to a woman. "Daughter, where are you going?" he asked sympathetically. "Probably to you." "Are you Elliot's?" the woman replied. The old man nodded. "I'm Emily, Sophia's friend. Get into the car, please. We're going to see Sophia. She couldn't come herself. It's hard for her without you. She needs your advice." "What happened to her?" Elliot asked, worry etched on his face. Emily explained she's pregnant. Her husband became very jealous when he found out about her trip here and hit her. She lost the baby and is now in the ICU. Her condition is serious but stable. "Oh, she's really in trouble," the old man said, thoughtfully stroking his beard. They arrived at the hospital closer to evening. As Emily spotted Derek's car parked near the entrance, she warned Elliot, "Don't worry, we'll take care of the rest." The old man calmly placed his hand on Emily's shoulder. "Well, if we're taking a risk, hold this," she said, handing him a dictaphone. "I'm not that ancient, dear. That's even a bit offensive." "Of course, I know how to use it," Elliot replied, pretending to be offended. "Don't take offense. It's all because of your beard," Emily smiled. "Well, let's go." The old man smiled back and stepped out of the car. Derek was not in the waiting room, so Elliot headed for the ward, but someone called out to him. "Stop. No visitors allowed. I'll call security right now." "Are you talking to me, dear?" Elliot replied. "I've been working in this hospital for 20 years. The staff member hesitated, then said, "Then take this." The former surgeon handed her his passport and requested to see the head of the department. 15 minutes later, Elliot entered the ward. Sophia was awake but pale and emaciated. "Hello," he said gently. "Oh, Elliot, how did you get here?" "Did Emily reach you?" she asked, her eyes wide with surprise. "Yes, everything's fine. Now listen to me. Here's a dictaphone. I'm going to put it in your hand, and you need to turn it on when your husband comes in. Pretend to be sleeping. I asked my ex-colleagues to delay him for a couple of minutes, and they're on their way now. Don't show any signs of consciousness, so nothing happens. Do you understand?" Sophia nodded in agreement as Elliot handed her the recorder. When hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway, she pressed the button and focused on breathing evenly. Derek burst into the room, tormented by guilt since he hit his wife. He was desperate to explain himself, to beg for forgiveness, and to fix what he had done at any cost. He loved her sincerely and feared losing her, seeking peace and forgiveness. But as he stepped in, rage surged at the sight of the old man. "What the hell are you doing here?" he shouted, but Elliot placed a finger to his lips and gestured toward the sleeping woman, effectively calming him. "She's my wife. Who let you in? Get out of here." "Derek," he said, "if she's your wife, does that give you the right to beat her?" "You're walking on thin ice," Elliot admonished. "I feel bad even without you moralizing. Are you her relative? If not, leave us alone. We'll figure it out ourselves." "Well, how did you think this would end?" "You can't build happiness on someone else's misery." "Have you heard that before?" Elliot pressed. "I don't live off someone else's misery." "Oh, really? And what about the unfortunate Hunt?" Elliot challenged. "What do you want?" Derek asked, weariness creeping into his voice. "The truth from beginning to end. Notice I'm not asking you to confess. Just tell me how you killed Victor." "I didn't kill him. It was the bear," Derek protested. "I asked for the truth. The bear doesn't attack humans at this time. It sleeps soundly if not disturbed," Elliot reasoned. "Old man, why do you want to know all this? If you already know everything, I offered you my conditions. Tell me the truth, and I'll leave you alone. Is that a deal?" "Fine, Grandpa. You've got it," Derek replied reluctantly. "Just so we're clear, after my story, I don't want to see you anymore," Derek said. "Agreed. Okay, since my beauty is asleep, we have plenty of time. I'll start from the beginning. Victor and I were inseparable since childhood. We were friends, grew up together, conquered challenges, and even fell in love with the same girl. But Sophia chose Victor. I endured their relationship at first." "Wow, they acted like happy puppies," he scoffed. "Yes, damn it. I was consumed by jealousy, the most natural kind. It tormented me then, just as my conscience does now. But if given the choice, I'd do it all over again. Because I love her. So how did you come up with a plan with the bear? Elliot asked, leading him further. Well, Victor and I shared a hobby and a business. After a long work week, we liked to unwind by hunting. It made us feel free, you know? We often hunted in those areas. There hadn't been any bear dens there before, but I noticed one this time. At first, I thought about luring the beast out and shooting it together with Victor. But then I decided to keep quiet for now. So, you were just waiting for the right moment? Elliot inquired. No, I just wasn't ready. But when Sophia and Victor announced their wedding, a switch flipped in my mind. I thought I could arrange everything to look like an accident. And it worked perfectly, as you know. I even acquired a batch of 40 cartridges for the double-barreled shotgun, which I handed to my friend. Not that I thought Victor had a chance against the bear, but business teaches us to be cautious. So how did you wake the bear? Elliot pressed. Firecrackers. Just a simple firecracker to rouse the bear from its sleep. It was furious and started looking for someone to blame. I went the opposite way for safety, but Victor headed straight for it. It's a shame about the bear. It probably died too. Why did you shoot it if everything was planned out so well? Oh, you know about that too. You really have a gift, Derek replied. Yeah, I realize that. You look at me and think I'm a real scumbag for setting up my friend to be killed and taking his fiancée for myself. But I'm human, truly. In that last moment when the bear slammed Victor against the tree with its paw, all the years of our friendship flashed before my eyes. The battles we fought side by side, our first tentative dates, and the heartbreak we endured. It was an overwhelming urge to save him, but I couldn't. The bear chased me quickly, but I managed to reach the car and drive away. I got drunk that day, considering blowing my brains out. It would have felt fair to Victor, but I held back. So did you start reaping the rewards of your crime after that? The next day, I delivered the bad news to Sophia. When she cried on my chest, and I consoled her as best I could, the thought of suicide vanished. I believe a new life had begun for me, a fresh start. Dating this wonderful woman made me feel over the moon, but then your appearance put a stop to my happiness. So, I'm glad we're saying goodbye now, as we agreed. Now leave me alone with my girl. Okay, Elliot said, extending his hand for a handshake. Meanwhile, he discreetly took the dictaphone from Sophia's hand, so Derek wouldn't notice the switch. That same evening, Derek was arrested on suspicion of murder. During the interrogation, Victor, now in a wheelchair, entered the room and fixed a piercing gaze on the man who had tried to kill him. Derek broke down in tears. Victor took over the business, much to the surprise of the employees, and Derek handed his share over to him. Elliot initially wanted to leave and live in solitude, but the young couple owed him everything and begged him to stay and live with them. Although it was too late for him to return to his profession as a surgeon, he found a new passion, studying psychology. He started for himself, but later aimed to help others. He learned to identify what people needed and provided it. Those who truly sought guidance received it, while those who merely wanted advice could talk to Elliot. He listened intently, taking his time without rushing. His life gained new meaning as he helped others find their will to live and fight. Occasionally, the family would visit the secluded village. For city dwellers, it became a unique sanctuary for the soul. They aided the villagers by bringing medicines that were otherwise inaccessible. One morning, however, Sophia didn't feel well. It's just like the time I was pregnant for the first time. I need to get a test right away. I'll head to the pharmacy, she said. Just let me finish my coffee. Elliot, sitting across from them, watched Sophia tossing and turning. He had a feeling he already knew the outcome, that the test would be positive. He chuckled quietly to himself.